Hello beautiful people, Anton here from Warhorse Training. I'm here today to talk about tonality. Now tonality in your voice, that is. So it's about a little bit of inner reflection, realising how you sound and the reasonings why you're sounding how you do. It's about how you can be confident and how you can perceive to be confident in difficult situations. And it's a little bit about look at who inspires you as a person and who you look up to, because their tonality will have a lot to do with it. So yeah, tonality. You need to reflect on the way that you sound, because sometimes you don't realise how you're coming across. Now it's something that I've had to learn a long time ago, back in the days when I was training to be a manager. So the way that I talk to you guys is very different to the way that I talk to my partner. It's very different to the way that I talk to my peers and my boss. And there's a reason for that, but I need to understand how I'm coming across and why I'm coming across that way. So it's about inner reflection. Now I have a bad habit of trying to go, and if you do, you're going to know about it, because you're going to be sat there trying to consciously not do that. And that's a little bit about, like, you're reflecting on the way that you're talking, and you want to make sure that you're not doing the all the time. So being confident in a difficult situation, you have to sometimes put a face on. The way that your tone is carries more weight than the words you physically use. If your tone comes across correct for the right occasion, words you use aren't as important. I mean, think about it when you was kids. How many times did your mum turn around to you and say, "Don't use that tone of voice with me"? There's a reason for that. You didn't know back then what tone you was using. Or, more to the fact, you automatically used a certain tone because you wanted an outcome. You was frustrated, so they heard it in your voice. You was angry, so they heard it in your voice. You was excited, so you was talking 100 miles an hour and stumbling over your words and not really knowing what you're doing. Parents will pick up on that, whereas when you're a kid, you don't quite pick up on it yourself. However, you're more susceptible when you're a kid to recognise tones. So if your mum turns around to you or your dad and says, "Don't use that tone of voice with me," you're going to know exactly, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble. Yes mum, sorry mum, 3 bags full mum." Okay? And it's not necessarily the words they're saying, it's the way they're saying it. I mean, if you talk to your kid and say, "Don't use that tone of voice with me," you're very passive. They're not going to engage with that, they're not going to listen. I'm not saying shout, that's a very different thing. But it's about the way that you perceive yourself. If you try, "Don't use that tone of voice with me, please," and end on a high, you're looking like you're seeking for approval, and that kid's going to walk all over you. Whereas if you turn around and say, "Don't use that tone of voice with me," it's very direct. It's very neutral, it's very monotone, but it gets the point across. And if you want to emphasise that more, obviously you can go into more of a deeper voice and more emphasise on certain parts. So example, "Don't use that tone of voice with me." Stopped on the tone, that's what you're talking about. Voice. And with me. So you didn't raise your voice, it was just the tonality was slightly different. Anyway, there's 3 types of tonality that I learned. There is rapport breaking tonality. There is a neutral tonality. And there is a rapport seeking tonality. They're the 3. And if you remember one of these, the chances are that you're going to unintentionally know what the others mean anyway. So let's start with seeking tonality, because loads of people out there use seeking tonality. And it's one thing that does grind my gears, but it's very easy to talk and, let's say, manipulate an outcome with someone who is of a very seeking nature. So seeking tonality is where you typically would talk of a higher pitch and end your conversation or your sentence on a higher note. So let's use the same one of "Don't use that tone of voice with me." So if you was seeking approval, it'd be more of a "Don't use that tone of voice with me." It's not very certain, you're not very knowing what you're doing. There's that 40% control and you're giving them that 60%. You're saying, "You have control over this conversation. I'm submitting to you." And think about how you talk to your boss. I guarantee when you talk to your boss that you end that sentence on a higher note. "Yeah, I'll definitely get that done for you, sir." right? So you're trying to please, you know. It can almost come across a little bit brown-nosy. And, you know, it's something that I know about all too well. If my peers and my colleagues talk to me like that, I identify that. And I don't rectify them instantaneously, but I do try and bring them back on the beaten track of more of a neutral tone. Because if they're talking to me like that, there's a reason for it. There's an underlying reason. They need to seek approval. Maybe I'm coming across too firm. Whatever the scenario may be, I need to identify that because they can't manage it themselves. It's just coming out through their voice. So you're coming across like you don't want to ruffle any feathers. Now, it can result in a little bit less respect. If people see you as a seeking type of person and, please like me, come on, everybody like me, they're going to be a little bit more, yeah, okay, I'm clearly in charge of this conversation. So that's seeking tonality. That's like probably the weaker state of tonality, but it has its place. Can't stress to you how much it has its place. Neutral tonality. Now this is one that you should always be stronger in and then daver into either side depending on what you need. It is exactly what it says on the tin. It is a single tone, it is a neutral tone, it shows that you're in control, and it gives that 50-50% you know, engagement, control, respect element to either party in the conversation. So if I'm talking a neutral tone to you guys, you're going to be respecting me as equally as I am respecting you. And let's use an example for that. So example, like we said, you know, don't use that tone of voice with me. If I was to do that neutrally, I would be more along the kind of like, don't use that tone of voice with me. It's direct, it's to the point, you're in control. But equally, that person who's just heard that has an option to then react to that or to go, yes, okay, I'm sorry, I won't do that again. Or to elevate that further because they feel that they could potentially sway this conversation to be in charge. So if you was to do more seeking, gives them control. If you was to do more neutral, it gives them options. Neutral is something that you always want to be mindful of. You don't stumble over your words, you stay single tone, and you're in control. It's very engaging, it's very more conversational basis. However, if you stay neutral all the time, you will seem a bit flatline, people will lose interest in you. Now the other one is breaking rapport, so rapport breaking tonality. Now, think about how your boss talks to you, or how a policeman would talk to you, or your mum or dad. You know, they're very much in control when they talk to you. Their tone is very downwards. Don't use that tone of voice with me. It's direct, it's to the point, it is, I'm in charge, you don't use that tone with me. It's not aggressive, it's not very loud, it's just direct. So think about how a policeman would talk to you. You know, license and registration, please. There's no option to say no. It is, right, I better get that. Think about how your boss would talk to you. You know, you're failing on this KPI. I want to see results by the end of the week and I would like you to email me how your progress is going. Am I clear? It's very direct. It's very, yes, I better do that. So it displays that you're in charge. You're not worried about what other people think about you, how they perceive you, and you're not putting your status last, which is most important. Because unlike the seeking one, where you're putting them as a higher status than you, with the rapport breaking, you're basically saying, I have a higher status than you, I'm in control of this situation. So what's important is to talk accordingly to your audience and the social status and how you want to engage with that individual. So obviously you want to engage with your boss very differently to you do with your colleagues, or to you do with your partner, or to you do with the woman that you've just met and started talking to. So adapt and change between those three tones to engage with your market audience or your targeted audience. Now, occasions and what target audience you're talking to is very, very different. So I've done the example of your boss. Do the example of your peer. So with your peer, you've got those three types of rapport. Rapport breaking, neutral, and rapport seeking. So this is someone level-headed with me within a company, or at the gym, example, that type of stuff. How do you think I'm going to talk to them? You know, I'm going to talk very seeking, neutral, or breaking. So the fact of the matter is I will always have a neutral platform. I might open up with a little bit more seeking to show more likability and be a little bit like, you know, hey, how you doing today? And then they would obviously engage in a happy conversation, and then you'd bring it a little bit more neutral tone. You'd be a little bit like, well, yeah, actually, today I've been, you know, got my car cleaned and I've just done another YouTube video. How's your day? And it straight away brings things back on track to an open 50-50 conversation. Now, if that conversation steers a little bit towards them overtaking you and overpowering you, then obviously you'll assert a little bit more of a report breaking style conversation. It'd be a little bit like, well, yeah, like I said, today is my day off and I'm going to do kind of what I want to do, and I will see you tomorrow because that's when I'm free. But thanks for asking anyway. And it's a little bit, you're seeking and then you're breaking and then you're neutral, but then you're ending on a breaking note and a fact of, I'm not available today. So presentation wise, you know, you got a presentation, you got multiple people around you and work like a business meeting. You've got to get this fact across. You know, the new business changes. So what you want to do is you want to open a little bit seeking, and you want to mention a little bit about what the company's like, what you're going to do, what your presentation's like, and get them engaged straight away. Then you want to go back to a neutral tone of a little bit, okay, going to top line this, guys. What we're talking about today is the key performance indicators, our profit and loss across the company, and how we're going to make this better. When the conversation in the meeting goes a little bit off track, you will find people talking, etc., etc. What you want to do is you bring it down to that rapport breaking and show that you're in control. And it's something along the lines of, guys, one meeting, please. So as I was saying, we're going to talk about KPIs and our profit and loss across the company. So you bring it into that rapport breaking, straight back into neutral tone, so they become a little bit more 50-50. But it just showed that you are empowered to control this presentation, and they are almost demanded to listen, because that's the purpose of the presentation. If they're not there to listen, why are they there? Now, how you talk to your friends is very, very differently. Depends on social status. I like to be very seeking across my friends. However, I do see very much in rapport breaking if I can see the conversation going completely off track and them trying to assert more dominance on me than I believe they are deserved. But I do like the seeking element, because I like every conversation to be memorable and everybody to be happy and people to walk away from my conversation feeling a little bit like, yeah, he's a nice guy. But at the same time, I don't want them to walk away thinking, what a pushover, waste of space. And that's something that's a fine line on the seeking element. Because if you're always like me, they're going to be a little bit more inclined to go, wow, I don't want to see that guy for another week. Now, interviews, two different sides. You know, you've got giving an interview. You're interviewing a body for a position. And you've got going to an interview. You're applying for that position. So if you're interviewing a body, you need to be very, very careful with the rapport breaking side of things, because it can come across very intimidating. If you're coming across very much in control, they know you're in control in that interview. They're going to be interviewed by you. So stick at a neutral tone, jump onto rapport breaking if they get a little bit off the beat track, and go into a little bit of seeking, but I would try and stay clear of that. Because the fact of the matter is your interview, you're ruling that interview and moving the interview questions in the right way. Now, if you're going to an interview, it's very different. You want to be a little bit seeking, not too seeking, because you don't want to come across too needy and weak and wobbly, but you do want to become across likeable. So end on a higher note when there's things that you're passionate about. So example, if I'm in the middle of an interview, well, I don't know, something like, trying to think, I don't know, Cineworld, let's say, because I'm passionate about, you know, movies. So when I'm talking about my movies, I'd be very high pitch, it'd be very exciting, and it'd be leaving on a high note. It'd be like, wow, I absolutely love this, and they'll be thinking, whoa, this guy's got a passion. Then I bring it back to that neutral tone, because that way they can see that I am in control of the way the conversation's going. Now, with rapport breaking, yes, you want to go on to that every so often if a question is asked that's a little bit unorthodox, and also if you need to take control of a situation. But just remember, you are the interviewee and you're trying to make the best impression. But you also want to seem in control. So, daver between the three. Now, if you're talking to a woman, think about how you talk. A woman, opposite sex, let's say. So, if you women out there listening, if you're talking to a man. If you're trying to seek approval all the time, you're not going to come across like the alpha male or alpha woman. You're going to come across very much a pushover. You know, not that, I don't want to say bad boy, but that bad boy person that people are going to want. You're going to come across very much like the good guy, and ooh, like me. Oh, how you doing? Oh, you look beautiful today, and all that jazz. Maybe not so much soft-hearted like that, I'll say. But you don't want to come across too rapport breaking, because that can get them disengaged. So I would say lean on seeking, lean on neutral, but rapport breaking when it comes to how they think. You know, they're asking you an open question. So they're saying something that they enjoy, and they ask you something openly like, what do you think? If you disagree, tell them you disagree. Be rapport breaking. Because it displays that confidence, and it displays that you're not bothered about how they feel your opinion is, but you respect their opinion. So they say their opinion, you're very seeking, very neutral, very, yes, I agree, that's fantastic. And then when they say, what do you think? You say, well, actually, I agree with your concept, but I believe that this is the actual situation. And here's why. Bring the tone down and explain why. They'll respect you a lot more for it. No one likes a yes man all the time. The other thing is talking to your partner. You will find when you talk to your partner, you're very neutral, and you will find that dominant party within your relationship. But be mindful of that. If you're quite dogmatic individual, you need to be more of the seeking and neutral side, otherwise your relationship's just going to grind gears over and over and over. Now, equally, if you're a little bit more of a pushover, every so often to turn around to someone and just be like, no, I'm not doing that, this is my day off and I need to relax. It just gives them that strength of character to go, ooh, okay, yeah, he actually needs a day of rest, in opposed to chucking a hoover around. How you talk to your kids, I've mentioned that, and how you talk to the police, I've mentioned that as well. So one last thing I want to talk about, and this is one of the main reasons why tonality hit home to me, is if you're dealing with someone who's aggressive and you are becoming the submissive party. Again, like I said before, I will go into it in another video, but I was severely bullied, and a lot of it came from my tonality. If I was to be submissive to an aggressor, they would see that as an opportunity of continuing that issue. So if someone comes up to you and they're very much like, give me all your money, and having a go at you, if you turn around and go, okay, yeah, no worries, you know, just leave me alone, it's more likely going to escalate. If you're more likely to hit a neutral tone and just say, yeah, I'll give you my money, but, you know, it doesn't need to end like this. It gives them that 50-50 chance to say, is this what I want to do? Now, to be perfectly honest, guys, if someone's asking you for the money, they already know what they want. So putting it back in their court with a neutral tone isn't really going to do you any favours, other than the fact maybe you're not going to get stabbed because you're being cooperative towards them. So what I would do is I would step in and be a little bit more assertive, a little bit more rapport breaking. I'd probably take a step back, that way it's not aggressive, and I'd just say, I don't want to give you my money. Why are you asking for such a thing? Are you struggling? Do you need some help? Then it gives you the control. If they start getting aggressive and pull something out, then obviously you can dip down into different aspects. What you most likely will find, if you're control of a situation, they tend to go back into that seeking side of things, and a little bit like, oh, I'm really sorry, yeah, I am actually struggling, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Okay, so that's not exactly the best example, it's just the only example off the top of my head. But prime example being in school. You know, if someone's bullying you in school and they walk past you and push you and say, oh, look at you, no, not bad. You know, if you was to turn around and go, oh yeah, I'm really sorry, you know, and be a little bit seeking, they're going to continuously bully you and see that as an opportunity. If you're more neutral and more, hey, watch where you're going, mate, come on, we both have to walk here. It gives it that 50-50 leeway for them to go, oh, actually, yeah, I shouldn't have really done that. And they're more likely to pick on someone else. If you're a little bit more assertive, it can escalate the situation, but it depends on their personality in reference to your personality. So if someone pushes into me, I'd be a little bit more inclined to go, I'm really sorry. And then depending on their outcome, I would react. So if I say I'm really sorry and they say, well, watch where you're going. I say, whoa, wait a minute, you walked into me. There is no need for that. I told you I'm sorry. Can you kindly just walk on now? Okay? And it gives them that impression of, whoa, he's in control here. Now, if it escalates, what you want to do is obviously step back into that neutral platform and just say, look, I was just trying to get my point across that you walked into me. I apologise first, and there's no need for that action. And then you follow suit depending on the conversation. Anyway, guys, I hope this helps. Tonality, 3 different types of tonality: rapport breaking, neutral tonality, and rapport seeking. I'm Anton from Warhorse Training. Thanks for listening, guys. Like, comment and subscribe on YouTube and Facebook at Warhorse Training, and tune into the next video. Take care.